I shut the engine off, but I didn't open the door right away. There were 2 men on the porch. One of them was my husband. The other one was wearing a tweed jacket in the middle of October in Tacoma, holding a leather briefcase I knew for a fact had nothing in it. Curtis didn't say hello. He said, "The house is sold, Loretta." That was the first word he got wrong. For 22 years, he was the only person alive who called me by my first name. The 3 men in that other house called me Top. My soldiers called me First Sergeant. My mother called me Retta. Only Curtis said Loretta, and in 22 years he had never once said it in front of a stranger. He was performing for the man in the tweed. I opened the door. Tacoma rain doesn't fall. It just hangs there and you walk through it. "Which house?" I asked. I was waiting to hear Lakewood. We were standing in front of the Lakewood house. That one was both of ours. I had made my peace with that a long time ago. He said, 1412 South Yakima. And then I laughed. His face went hard. "Why are you laughing?" He was actually asking, not as a challenge. He honestly didn't understand. I wasn't laughing at him. I was laughing the way you laugh at a man who has just been shot and doesn't know it yet. I had done that before. Twice, in Ramadi in 2005. You keep your face completely ordinary. Because the only thing you have left to give them is another 30 seconds without panic. I wasn't laughing because I had somewhere to go. I was laughing because I was counting. There were 3 men living in the house at 1412 South Yakima. Amos Teague, 74. Navy Corpsman, Vietnam, 69 to 71. He has been homeless twice. The first time was 11 months. The second time was 4 years. He tells stories about the first time. He has never once talked about the second. Ruben Salcido, 44, Ramadi, same year as me, different unit. His left leg stops just above the knee. He is the closest of the 3 to getting out. He has held a job 14 months straight. For Ruben, 14 months is a world record. Wyatt Hobbs, 31, traumatic brain injury. He writes everything on the back of his hand in ballpoint, and every night he washes his hands, and every morning he writes it again. I have watched him write the word top on his own hand 3 times in 1 week. Curtis thought he had just taken away the place I go home to. What he had done was sell the place 3 other people go home to, and in the 5 years that house belonged to me, he never once walked through that door. I invited him 6 times. The last time was Thanksgiving and he said he was on call. The man in the tweed took half a step forward. He put his hand out. I didn't take it. I looked at Curtis and I asked exactly one question. "Who signed?" He lifted his chin a little. I know that move. He does it when he thinks he has just won. I did. And that was when I knew this wasn't going to end with me. I didn't argue. I went back to the truck. Royce Tandy called after me. He said, "We thank you for your service." I drove away. I didn't go home. I didn't have a home to go to in both senses of it, and I didn't want one. I drove north on South Tacoma Way, then turned onto South Yakima, and I parked about 3 houses down from 1412 on the other side of the street, and I shut the engine off. 7 at night. October. It had been dark since 5. Kitchen light on, living room light on, the back bedroom light, Amos's room, on, because Amos does not turn off lights, ever. And nobody in that house has ever asked him why, because all of us know why. A shape moved past the kitchen window. Small, walking a little bent. Wyatt. He was doing the dishes. He does the dishes every night at 7 because I wrote it on the board on the refrigerator 18 months ago, and he has not missed a night since. I sat in the truck, and I looked at that window, and I thought about one very small thing, and I still think about it. In the 3 weeks I was in Seattle, nobody in that house called to ask me when I was coming back. They knew I was with Amos. They knew Amos was in the hospital. So they didn't call, because calling means being a bother, and those 3 men have spent most of their lives learning how not to be a bother to anybody. Those are the people whose beds my husband just sold, not the kind who would shout. The kind who would fold the notice up and say, "All right." I sat there 40 minutes before I turned the key. Long enough that the right knee had locked up. It does that now, in the cold, from all the years of going down on it beside other people. 22 years of kneeling. You would think somebody would warn you which part of you pays for it. I didn't go in that night. I didn't know what to say to them, and I wasn't going to walk through that door until I did. 3 weeks before that, I was in Seattle, the VA hospital on South Columbian Way. Amos's heart, not the first one, but the first one where they used the word if instead of the word when. I slept 19 nights in a chair at Fisher House. Anybody who has ever slept at a Fisher House knows that chair. It is not for sleeping. It is so that you don't have to go home and admit that you went home. Curtis called me 3 times in 19 days. I thought he was giving me room. He wasn't waiting for a deployment. In 22 years, he had learned my calendar very well. He didn't need a war. He just needed a Tuesday when I wasn't there. There is something I need to tell you, and I will, but not yet. That April, I sent him a letter. We met in Clarksville, Tennessee in 2002. I was 25, a medic, just posted to Fort Campbell. Curtis was 27, he fixed air conditioners, and he was the only man in that bar who didn't ask me whether I was really in the Army. He asked me what I liked to eat. And then he remembered. 22 years later, he still knew I don't eat onions. I think about that more than is good for me. Campbell, Bliss, Vicenza, Carson, Riley, Lewis. 6 moves. Every move was Curtis packing his tools into boxes, canceling contracts, saying goodbye to his customers, and starting over from nothing in another state. In El Paso, he almost had his own shop. We got orders to Italy. In Colorado Springs, he had 3 men working for him and a truck with his name on it. We got orders to Kansas. In Kansas, he stopped trying. People ask why we never had children. The true answer is that I was somewhere else for most of the years when we still could have. I don't tell anybody that. I say we were busy. The word busy makes people stop asking. I need you to hear this part clearly, because otherwise the rest of it gets easier than it has any right to be. Curtis wasn't wrong. He followed me for 22 years and never finished one single thing of his own. That is true. I knew it then. I know it now. That is the bad part. If he were simply a bad man, this would have been a great deal easier. In 2011, I went to Kandahar. Before every deployment, the Army sits you down with a lawyer for 40 minutes, and you sign a stack of paper. Will, beneficiary designations, medical directive, and a power of attorney. The power of attorney is so that if you are in Afghanistan and the roof caves in, somebody can sign a contract to fix it. It is a normal thing. Everybody signs one. The lawyer asked me whether I wanted the kind with an expiration date or the kind without, and I looked at Curtis sitting in a chair across the room and I said without. I signed it at 10 in the morning on a Thursday at Fort Riley, Kansas, and I did not think about it once in 13 years. I came home. The roof didn't cave in. Nothing happened at all. The paper sat in a metal box in the closet with the passports and the old licenses, and it did not expire, because I had told them not to let it expire. Last April, I typed my husband's name into the Washington Secretary of State website. Anybody can do it, it's free. It takes about 9 seconds. And I saw it. Tandy Kinsey Holdings LLC, formed the 2nd of April. It was 10 at night. I was at the kitchen table in Lakewood with the overhead light off because I had only come in for water. Curtis was asleep down the hall. I could hear him. 9 seconds to find it. I sat there until 2. Registered Agent Royce Tandy. Governing Person Curtis Kinsey, 60%. There is a line on those forms where you type in what the business does, and somebody had filled in 2 words, real estate. $40 a year keeps a thing like that alive. All of it public. Sitting on a state website at 10 at night waiting for anybody who thought to look. 22 years, and I learned what my husband was doing from a form I could have pulled any Tuesday since the 2nd of April. I printed the revocation that night. 1 page, $40 filing fee. Then I walked back down the hall and got into bed next to him. It sat in the glove box of my truck for 11 days. The man in the tweed was named Royce Tandy. He told people to call him Colonel Tandy. He never served, not one day. I knew that in 4 minutes, with 1 phone call and a public database. Because if you are in the Army 22 years, you learn that a man who actually made colonel almost never makes you call him colonel. The business card said, Veteran Family Advocate. He looks for men like Amos. Men with a VA claim that has been pending 14 months, 18 months, 3 years. He sits down, he calls them brother, he says he can take care of it, and he charges a fee. Charging a fee to file an initial VA claim is illegal. There is a federal law about exactly that. Rice Tandy had been doing it for 9 years across 3 counties. He didn't hide it. He sponsored the jerseys for a youth football team. His name was printed on the back. Curtis didn't buy a sports car. This is where I need you to understand my husband, because if you think he was greedy, you have it wrong. He bought a 28-foot bayliner at the Dock Street Marina. He doesn't know how to run a boat. He has never run a boat. In the 6 weeks he owned it, that boat never once left the dock. He bought the whole room at the VFW post on 6th. 2 rounds. He paid with a card drawn on our joint account. Curtis is not a veteran. He is not allowed to be a member there. He got in because everybody in that room knew me, and because for 11 years he had been Top's husband, and nobody wanted to be the one who stopped him at the door. And in the bedroom of the Lakewood house, he built a glass case. In that case were my unit patches. All 3. The one from Ramadi, the one from Kandahar, and the one they gave me the day I made first sergeant. He didn't ask me. He wasn't spending money. He was buying a biography. For 22 years, every time somebody at a barbecue asked him what he did, he had to say, "I fix air conditioners," right after I had finished saying my line. I never noticed. That is the thing I regret most. And it is not on the list of things I am allowed to regret, but it is there anyway. The notice went up on the door on the 28th of October. 20 days. That is the law in this state. New owner buys the house. New owner wants the house empty. 20 days. Wyatt read it 4 times. I stood next to him and I watched him read it 4 times, and I knew exactly what was happening because for Wyatt, information is like water in your hands. He reads it, he understands it, he turns away, and it isn't there anymore. On the 4th time, he took out his pen and wrote on the back of his hand. He wrote 20. Reuben didn't say anything. Reuben sat down on the step and stayed there 40 minutes. And I let him sit because I knew the math he was doing. 14 months of work. The job is a mile away. He can walk it. On that leg, he can walk it. And that is the only reason those 14 months exist. Amos read it once. Then he folded it in quarters, very carefully, along the creases, the way a man folds a flag if he is the only one there. He put it in his breast pocket, and he said, "All right." 2 words. I have stood in Ramadi when one of our vehicles hit a mine. I have sat 19 nights in that chair at Fisher House. I have listened to a doctor say the word if. All right, said by a 74-year-old man who had just folded his own eviction notice like a flag. That is the thing that broke me. Because I know what that word means. It means he has read that notice before. It means he knows what comes next. It means he is not going to argue, not going to ask, not going to be a bother to anybody, because he learned a long time ago that arguing changes nothing and only makes people uncomfortable. He is 74 years old and he has a cardiac monitor, and he had just said, "All right, a 3rd time homeless will kill him." That is not something I am saying to sound good. I was a medic for 22 years. I am telling you that heart, and this winter, and that sidewalk, added together. I had 20 days. With 18 days left, I sat in the regional VA office. The woman on the other side of the desk was named Denise. I want to be clear about Denise, because this part of the story is easy to tell wrong. Denise is not lazy. Denise is not cold. Denise listened to me for 15 minutes without interrupting once, and when I finished, she did exactly the right thing. She typed Amos's name into the computer. There is a program called HUD-VASH. It is a housing voucher for veterans. It is good. It is actually good. It has saved a great many people. Denise looked at the screen. Then she looked at me. Then she looked back at the screen, and I knew before she opened her mouth, because I have seen that look on the face of a triage nurse. The current wait list is 14 months. I asked if there was a way to move it faster. There is. There is a priority process. It needs medical documentation showing risk to life. Amos has that. Submit it and it gets reviewed in, she checked, 90 days. I had 18. Denise said, "I'm sorry." And she meant it. That is the whole thing. The system does not refuse you. It does not shut the door in your face. It does not hate you. It just asks you to come back in 14 months, in a very kind voice. On day 13, I went to the county. This is where it starts to get bad. Because they said yes. The man at Pierce County Human Services looked at my file and said, "Yes, we have room. 2 beds. At the facility on 6, they could take them in 4 days. 2. I said I needed 3. He asked me about the 3. I told him. Ages, conditions, records. And when I got to Amos's cardiac monitor, I watched it happen. The moment a decent man turns into a procedure, that facility has no medical staff overnight. Their insurance does not let them take a man with a cardiac monitor without medical staff overnight. Nobody did anything wrong. Nobody was cruel. It was one sentence in an insurance contract that nobody in that room wrote. Wyatt could go. Reuben could go. Amos could not. I drove back and I sat in the kitchen of the Yakima house and I told the 3 of them. Reuben didn't say anything. Reuben looked at the table. Wyatt took out his pen. Amos said, "We go together or we don't go." I told him he didn't understand, that this was not a choice, that if he didn't go, he was on the sidewalk and this winter. And that heart. He said, "Top." That's all. He called me Top and he didn't say anything else. I have shouted that sentence at Fort Riley at 5 in the morning at 19-year-olds who couldn't tie their own boots. We go together or we don't go. Amos is 74. He learned it 30 years before I did, in a place I have never been, from men I never met. I sat at that kitchen table, and I looked at him, and I understood that I had never taught him anything at all. On day 11, I did the thing I should have done first. I made phone calls. 22 years. 6 units. You don't go through that much without somebody owing you something. That is what people tell you. That is what I believed. The first was my old commander from Riley. He is a real colonel now at Lewis, 20 minutes from here. He asked 4 people and called me back in 2 days. The Army does not house civilians. Amos is not his soldier. Amos is Navy 71, discharged before that colonel was born. It wasn't that nobody wanted to. There was no button to push. The second was a woman I served with in Vicenza who runs a non-profit in Portland now. She said yes immediately without asking a single question. She had 1 bed. I didn't have 1 man. I had 3. And Portland is 3 hours from here. And 3 hours means Reuben loses his job, because Reuben's job is a mile from the house and Reuben walks. The third one wasn't a phone call. I went to the VFW post on 6th on a Friday night, the same room where my husband had bought 2 rounds with my money. I told them. I kept it short, because I don't believe in telling it long. And they passed a hat. Men and women, most of them past 60. People on a $900 a month pension. People waiting on their own VA claims. People who have slept outside and never said so. 40 minutes. $2,400. That is what a room full of people who have been shot at can put together in 40 minutes for one of their own. I took it. I thanked every one of them by name. And I did not tell them that it bought nothing. $2,400 is 9 days in a motel, not 9 days for 3 men. 9 days for 1. That was the worst 40 minutes of the whole thing, and I am counting the porch. Because on the porch I knew exactly who the bad man was. In that room there were no bad men at all. Just 40 decent people, and a hat and a number that wasn't enough. I tried to give it back in March. Went down there on a Friday with an envelope for every name. Not one of them took it. A man on a $900 pension told me it wasn't mine to give back. He was right. It never had been mine. It was theirs, and they had already spent it on the only thing any of us had left to spend it on. On day 9, I went to buy back my own house. I know how that sounds. I know. But I sat down with the numbers and the numbers said so. I have a pension. I have disability compensation. I have what is left of my father's life insurance that I hadn't touched in 5 years. I could borrow the rest. They bought that house for $180,000. I know that number because it is in the public record at the county clerk's office, and anybody can look it up. And I looked it up. The house is worth $242,000. I know that number too. I offered $240,000, $60,000 over what they paid. Cash. Close in 7 days. No contingencies, no appraisal, nothing. Royce Tandy sat across from me in a coffee shop on Pacific and let me finish. He nodded a few times. He called me sister twice. Then he said, 310. I sat there and I did the math, and the math didn't work. 310 is stupid. 310 is stupid. 310 is 70,000 over market. No bank lends that. No buyer pays that. If I said no, he was holding a house he couldn't sell for what he had just asked for it. He wasn't greedy. A greedy man takes the 240 and laughs all the way home. Then I understood. He didn't want to sell to me. He wanted me out of money. A Loretta Kinsey who pays $310,000 for her own house is a Loretta Kinsey with nothing left to hire a lawyer with. He wasn't negotiating the price of a house. He was pricing my silence. He had been doing this 9 years across 3 counties. He knew exactly what a veteran will pay to not watch somebody sleep outside. I stood up. I didn't shake his hand. He called after me, still pleasant. "You think about it, sister." I sat in my truck in the parking lot of the Pierce County Clerk's office, 2401 South 35th Street, and I didn't start the engine for 20 minutes. Then I opened the glove box. It was still there. The revocation form, printed in April, curled a little at the corner because that box gets hot in the summer. In April it was $40. I looked it up that day. Filed now with the notary, with service on him, with recording against the property because real estate was involved, $103. $103. $40 in April, and I didn't. That is the whole story, if you want the short version. Everything after this is just interest. It was doing that thing the rain does, not falling, just hanging on the windshield. I didn't turn the wipers on because there was nothing to wipe. I sat in that truck and I waited for the feeling people tell you is coming. It didn't come. I know why I didn't file it. I knew in April. I knew the day I printed it. I knew all 11 days it sat in that truck. Filing that form means walking into a public building, raising your hand and swearing an oath and putting it in a record anybody can pull. That I did not trust the man who followed me through 6 states in 22 years. $40 to say that in writing. People will want me to say I was a coward, that I could run a company and put a bandage on a man under fire but couldn't spend $40. That is not what happened. I knew exactly what that form did. I knew exactly what not filing it cost. I sat with both numbers and I chose. I wasn't afraid. I was loyal. Those are the same things seen from 2 sides, so I did what I always do. I warned him. I sent him a letter. On day 8, my phone rang at 9 at night. Number, I didn't know. She said her name before I could ask. My name is Priya Raman. I work at the escrow company. I'm the one who closed the sale on your house. I didn't say anything. I know I'm not supposed to call you. I know exactly how many things I'm breaking right now. I asked her why she was calling. There was a pause long enough that I thought she had hung up. Then she said, I have closed more than 400 files. He is the only person who ever told me not to call the house. My lawyer's name is Fitz. He is 33 and he works at the Veterans Legal Aid Center and he has 140 open cases. I know that number because I asked, and because he is the kind of man who answers honestly when he is asked. I laid all of it out on the table for him. The power of attorney, the company filing, the deed, the sale price, $62,000 under market. Fitz read for 11 minutes and said nothing. Then he pushed the stack to one side and said, You're going to win. I waited. The Yakima house is your separate property. You bought it before, with your money. He doesn't have a nickel of interest in it. He tapped his finger on the power of attorney. This is the only thing that gave him the authority to sign. And it does not let him sell to a company he owns 60% of. That's called self-dealing. It has its own name in the law because it happens often enough to need one. I asked him to explain it to me in one sentence. A power of attorney lets him sign for you, not against you. Then he said the second sentence, and the second sentence is the reason I am telling you about Fitz at all. You're going to win. In about 14 months. 14 months. That was the third number I had heard in 2 weeks. The VA wait list, 14 months. Priority review, 90 days. Civil suit, 14 months. I had 9 days. Fitz could have lied to make me feel better. Plenty of lawyers would. He sat there with 140 open cases and he gave me the real number and I hated him for 4 seconds, and then I was grateful to him for the rest of my life. I asked him what the 14 months counted from. He said from today. I asked what happens if I file first thing tomorrow morning. He said still 14 months. Priya Raman signed a sworn affidavit the next morning. She knew what it would do to her job. She signed it anyway. There were 3 things in it. The mailing address he gave the escrow company was not the address of the house. He asked to close up the office. The third one is the one that finished him. He told her not to call the landline at the house. She wrote it down word for word because it is the reason she called me at 9 at night. Don't call the house. Somebody will answer. Fitz read it twice. Then he said, "This is very good. Nobody tells you not to call an empty house. You only say that when you know exactly who is inside it, and you don't want to hear them. The defense of I thought it was both of ours. I made a mistake. Dies in one sentence." I asked Fitz how much time it saved. None. Evidence does not buy time. That is the thing nobody tells you. I had a perfect affidavit and I had 8 days, and those two things do not speak to each other. On day 7, I drove to 2401 South 35th Street. I didn't sue. Suing takes 14 months, and I did not have 14 months. I filed paper. The first one was the revocation form, the piece of paper that had been in my glove box since April. It reversed nothing. The house was already sold. I filed it anyway. I stood in front of a woman named Marguerite at window 4, and I raised my hand and I swore, and I signed my name, and I paid $103, 7 months and $63 late. Marguerite asked if I wanted a receipt. I said yes. I still have it. It proves nothing. I still don't think I should have filed it sooner. The second one was a piece of paper called a lease pendens. It is 1 page long. It sues nobody, demands nothing, wins nothing. All it does is record, in the county land records, permanently attached to the parcel at 1412 South Yakima, 1 sentence. Title to this property is disputed. I paid $43. Tandy Kinsey Holdings had mortgaged the house the week after closing, borrowed $240,000. That was the entire plan. Buy it cheap with my money, borrow high against it, pull the cash out, leave the carcass. Banks do not lend against a parcel with the word disputed written on it. $43. I couldn't stop him in April with 40. I stopped a $240,000 loan in November with 43. I sat in the truck in the parking lot and I felt nothing at all. People think that's when you feel good. You don't feel anything. You just feel tired, and you think about needing gas. Fitz called that afternoon and said the notice on the door did nothing. It is a piece of paper. It is not an order. To take 3 men out of a house you need a judge. And no court in this state decides ownership in an eviction hearing. Title and dispute in the petition dies at the door. I asked what that meant. It means nobody's going anywhere. I sat in that truck a long time after I hung up. 12 days. The VA. The county. A room full of people who have been shot at passing a hat. The problem was never beds. The problem was a $43 piece of paper, and I didn't know because I am a medic, not a lawyer. Nobody hid it from me. I asked the wrong people. That is how the system wears you out, not by saying no. By letting you ask the wrong question for 12 days, very politely. The deposition was in January in a conference room in downtown Tacoma with a window over the harbor. The list pendants stopped everything. No eviction, no sale, no loan. The 20-day clock I had been living inside for 2 weeks simply stopped running, and there was no bell. Curtis talked. I need you to understand this because in 22 years Curtis Kinsey was never the one who did the talking in a room. I was. I was the one with the rank and the voice and the habit of talking until there was nothing left to say. That day he talked for 40 minutes. He explained the real estate market. He explained that I was gone a lot. He explained that he had tried to call. He told a story about El Paso in 2007 that nobody in the room asked for and nobody in the room needed. His lawyer touched his arm twice. He kept talking. I said nothing. That wasn't tactics. Fitz didn't coach me. I just sat there and I watched, and I did exactly what I did on the porch in October and what I did in the coffee shop with Royce Tandy. And what I did for 22 years every time he started a sentence with the words, "if I had." Then Fitz asked, "Mr. Kinsey, did she warn you?" And for the first time in 40 minutes, he was quiet. His lawyer objected. It was noted for the record. Fitz asked again. Curtis said, "I don't remember." Fitz slid a piece of paper across the table. It made the sound paper makes on a conference table, which is almost nothing, and in that room it was enormous. It was a green card. Anybody who has ever sent certified mail in this country knows that green card. It comes back to your mailbox with the signature of the person who took delivery on the back. The 14th of April, 9:42 in the morning. Curtis Kinsey's signature. Ballpoint. leaning a little to the right the way every signature of his had leaned for 22 years. Then nothing. The stenographer's hands stopped over the keys. Behind the wall, the heat kicked on, and I sat there and listened to a building breathe while my husband read his own name. The Postal Service photographs it. It sits in a federal database. Anybody can pull it with the tracking number. Fitz slid the second one across. A copy of the letter. Would you like to read it, or should I? Curtis didn't answer. Fitz, read it. Curtis. The Yakima house is not an asset. It is 3 men. If you sell it, they have nowhere to go. There is nowhere else. I looked. The power of attorney I gave you in 2011 does not let you do this. It does not let you act against me. I think you already know that. Send it back to me. I won't ask why. L. 6 lines. The room was quiet. He signed for it at 9:42 in the morning on the 14th of April. He sold the house on the 19th of September, 158 days. He didn't say another word for the rest of that day. Neither did I. Outside the window, the rain hung over the water. It didn't fall. The deed he signed is the kind called a warranty deed. Curtis did not read those words. I know that, because Curtis has never read a full page of anything in his life, and because if he had read it, he would not have signed. A warranty deed means the person signing it promises, personally, not through the company, that he has the authority to sell. If it turns out he didn't, the person signing eats it. The bank called Tandy Kinsey Holdings on the 11th of November. The $240,000 loan had no collateral behind it anymore. They called the whole thing due at once. The company is a name on a piece of paper, so the bank went looking for the man who made the promise. Royce Tandy held 40% and was listed as the manager. He did not sign the deed. He did not guarantee anything. He never signed a single word in this entire thing, and I suspect he has been doing exactly that for 9 years across 3 counties. Curtis Kinsey meant to take $180,000. He owes $240,000. He is the only one who signed. He texted me in February. I'm at the Dock Street Marina. If you want to get your things. There was nothing to get. I knew that. He knew that. It is how a person asks when he doesn't know how to ask. The Bayliner was still at slip 4. It had never left that spot. He was living on it. My husband sold 3 Veterans House, and he ended up living on a boat that doesn't run, at a marina in February in Tacoma. He was thinner. Not the good kind of thin. The kind that comes from forgetting. I didn't get on the boat. I stood on the dock, he stood on the deck, and we talked across 3 feet of water. If you want to know how 22 years ends, that is how it ends. Over his shoulder, I saw it. The glass case. He had brought it down to the boat. My 3-unit patches, mounted on velvet in the cabin of a boat that has never left the dock, in February, in Tacoma. I didn't ask for them back. I don't know why. I still don't know. He handed me an envelope. Inside it was 22 months of payment history, printed out. He had gone and printed it himself at the library. Every dollar Royce Tandy ever took off a veteran, run through Curtis's account, because Tandy was smart enough not to take it directly, and Curtis was dumb enough to take it for him. 41 names. I looked at the envelope and I said, "This buries you." He said, "I know." I asked him why, and he said this, and I have thought about it every day since. Because you told me to send it back, and I didn't. Royce Tandy was charged by the Washington State Attorney General on 8 counts that spring. His broker's license was pulled. 3 counties opened files. 41 veterans got a letter, a real letter from a real office, saying the money they had paid was illegal and they had the right to get it back. I didn't do that. I want to be clear, because this is the place where a story like this wants to lie to you. I did not bring down Royce Tandy. I was not smarter than him. I did not have a plan. I had $43 and a 74-year-old man saying we go together or we don't go. Royce Tandy fell because Curtis Kinsey walked to the Tacoma Public Library and printed 22 months of receipts. The one decent thing my husband did in this entire thing took away his last ally and got him nothing at all. The Department of Licensing opened a file on Priya Raman in March. She had contacted a party to a transaction she was handling. That is a violation. There is no clause that says unless she was right. I wrote a statement. 4 pages. I sat with it 3 nights because I am not a writer, and because I knew every word of it would be read and weighed by a stranger. I signed my name at the bottom, all of it, rank included. I filed it, I paid the fee, and I kept the receipt. She was reprimanded. She did not lose her license. She is still doing that job today, 2.5 miles from where I am sitting. She signed a piece of paper that wrecked her life in order to tell the truth. I signed one to pay her back. No reduced sentence. No deal. No forgiveness. The $240,000 is still there, and it is going to be there a long time. He did it anyway. People want me to say it proves there was still something good in him somewhere, or that it came too late to count. I am not saying either one. It is just there in the record, a fact, like every other fact. The house came back into my name in June. Amos is still in the back bedroom. He never went to the sidewalk. That heart is still beating, and it will beat a while longer, and I don't know how long, and nobody does, and that is normal. Reuben kept the job. 14 months became 22. He still walks the mile. Wyatt still writes on his hand. In September I bought 1414 South Yakima, the house next door. The old woman who lived there died and her son wanted a fast sale. 6 more beds. I didn't start a scholarship fund. I didn't name anything after anybody. I don't think what happened to me means anything large. And I don't trust people who turn the worst thing in their life into a lesson. But I did do one thing. The first day a man moves in, he sits at the kitchen table with me, and he signs a piece of paper. 1 page. It says who can speak for him. It says who cannot. It says in what and until when and how to cancel it, and it says what it costs to cancel it, and I print that number on the paper so nobody has to go look it up. Wyatt asked me why he had to sign this on the first day. I told him the truth. I said, because Top signed a piece of paper for somebody Top trusted, and Top would sign it again. So now there's this one. He thought about it for a minute. Then he wrote something on the back of his hand and he signed. The June after that, Amos dropped something in the kitchen. He bent down to pick it up. Slow, because he is 75 and because of the heart, and when he bent, a piece of paper fell out of his breast pocket, folded in quarters, worn white along the creases. The kind of wear paper only gets when it has been in a pocket a long time and taken out a great many times. I knew what it was before it hit the floor. 20 days, the notice from the door in October. He picked it up. He folded it back along the same creases. He put it in his pocket. He didn't say anything. I didn't ask. We won. The house is his. Nobody is putting him out of it ever, and he knows that because I have sat at that table and told him 3 times. He still carries it in his breast pocket. People ask me if I forgive him. I understand why they ask. That is where the story wants to end. You forgive, you feel lighter, you move on. There's music. I don't have that answer. I have this one. Honor is not winning. I won. It is not what I thought it would be. Honor is not getting it right from the start. I didn't get it right. I left a piece of paper in a glove box for 11 days because I was afraid of what it said about me. Honor is putting your name on what you did. Curtis never signed. In 22 years, he never put his name on one thing that was his. Not the shop. Not the trip. Not the life. So when he finally signed something, he signed mine. That is the whole story, if you want the shortest version. I still think about that form. $40 in April on a Tuesday, and I didn't. I don't think I was wrong. I think I was married. Amos signed for 4 years on a sidewalk and never told anybody. Reuben signs a timesheet every Friday and walks a mile each way to do it. Wyatt signs his name on a page and then writes it on his hand, so he'll remember that he did. Those are the 3 men my husband sold. Every one of them signs. Every one of them has been signing their whole lives for things that cost them and gave nothing back, and not one of them ever asked me to notice. Curtis had 1 signature in 22 years. He spent it on me. And here's the part I don't say at the kitchen table. I'm not different from him. I had a form and I didn't sign it for 11 days because signing it meant writing down in a public record what I already knew in April. The difference isn't that I'm better. The difference is that when it came time, I put my name on what I did. He put my name on what he did. That's the whole distance. It's 4 inches of ink and it's everything. I am sitting on the porch of 1414 while I tell you this. It's raining. In Tacoma, the rain doesn't fall. It hangs there all season from October to April. You walk through it, you go to work, you come home, and it is still there. People from other places ask when it stops. It doesn't stop. You just stop asking. People write to me now. They want me to tell them to go do it. I won't. I'll tell you what it costs, because nobody told me. The revocation is 1 page. In this state, it's $40 in April and $103 in November, and the difference is the notary, the service, and the recording fee if there's property. The list pendens is 1 page and $43. You file it at the county. It doesn't sue anybody, and it doesn't win anything, and it stops a bank cold. Those are the numbers. They're on the county website. They were on the county website the whole time. I'm not going to tell you to go down there. I don't have the standing. I sat in that lot 20 minutes with the form in my hand, and I know exactly what it smells like in October and exactly how long you can sit in one before you have to admit what you're doing. What I'll say is this: nobody is coming. Not the VA, not the county, not the man who used to be your commander. They're not withholding it. They just don't have a button. There is no button. There's a counter and a woman named Marguerite and $43. If you're listening to this and there's a piece of paper in your glove box, I'm not going to tell you what to do with it. I already said that. I left mine in there 11 days, and I wore the uniform 22 years. I just want you to know that you're not the only one who sat in a car in a parking lot knowing exactly what you needed to do and not doing it. It isn't cowardice. I looked for that word for a year and it isn't the one. You're not afraid of the form. You're afraid of what signing it says about somebody you've already decided to keep believing in. Those are different fears, and only one of them is worth 11 days. Mine cost $63 and a house and 3 men's beds, and I'd probably do it again, and I want you to hear a woman say that out loud, because everybody who tells this kind of story pretends that they wouldn't. If this sat with you, sit it in front of somebody else, somebody with a glove box. People ask me if my husband sold the wrong house. He didn't. He sold the right one. He just never once knew whose it was.